So today we begin Act 3, and in this act we see the role of the Furies. The Furies become important in this scene, not in this act, yes, Act 3, because they are going to punish Orestes and Electra. So I refrained from using the word nemesis, but in Sartre's play, the ending of the play is tragic, though it is not a conventional tragedy. And we see that both the hero and the heroine, that is Orestes and Electra, both of them go to the underworld or hell for punishment. Now, in the last class I discussed in detail that this play is not a Greek play, even though it uses Greek myth, but it is also to some extent shaped like a tragedy. However, it is not a tragedy in the true sense of the term, not in the Aristotelian sense of the term, and therefore I refrain from the use of nemesis, because in Aristotelian interpretation of Greek tragedy, you know that ultimately the hero is destroyed because of his hamartia, and he is punished. Either he is dead or he is destroyed in some other way. Now, Sartre's play, we know, is a play that illustrates existential philosophy. So Orestes illustrates the predicament of man, and a man who asserts his freedom. We may say that it is a corollary of existentialism, that freedom entails torture, that freedom entails punishment. Because the man who asserts his freedom vis-a-vis the gods, or we may say, if we do not believe in gods, that vis-a-vis the world, or vis-a-vis the human predicament. So a person who asserts his or her freedom, braving the human situation, such a person runs against the grain of the world, because the world believes in exerting control over men, over people, through ideology. And this is executed by the state and by religion. State and religion are mostly hand in gloves. They help each other. And any individual who would try to assert his or her freedom against the, will have to fight against the state and the religion, because these are the forces of the establishment. These are the forces of institution, or institutionalized forces, against which an individual has to fight in order to assert his or her freedom. So, according to existential philosophy, freedom is a choice. Once you make this choice, then you choose for yourself trouble. You choose for yourself torture. You choose for yourself punishment, because you go against the grain of the world. So this term world is very vague. So what does world stand for? I mean, we as individuals, we are controlled, we may say, or is controlled by the government, the state, and religion and political ideology. So it is ideology that keeps people in check. It is ideology that does not allow people to believe in their freedom. Therefore, in this place, Sartre has shown how people do not know that they are free. And Orestes is a revolutionary figure who, like other revolutionaries, who tries to convince the people that they are free. So this is a secret, or this fact is kept secret by the gods and the kings. So Zeus tells Eurystheus in this play that I have a secret and you also have the same secret. And what is that secret? That men are free. So men are free, but they do not know it. But Orestes comes to know it all of a sudden. So he says that freedom crashed upon me like a thunderbolt. And then I became intoxicated by freedom. So this is, we may say, an inner realization. So once you realize that you are free, then you won't agree to being controlled by any other force or any institution. But Orestes is not only happy with his personal freedom. He wants to assert this freedom, or he wants to disseminate this knowledge of freedom to the people of Argos, so that people do not remain enslaved to ideology. Therefore, Orestes takes upon himself the role of leader of the people, the role of a revolutionary, the role of a person who is anti-institution or anti-establishment. And he wants to disseminate this idea among the people so that the people also rise against institutions, against forces that try to control them. Therefore, such a person cannot but end unhappily. Why? Because the forces of the establishment will not allow him to go unpunished, because he rises against them, he acts against them. And therefore, this role is taken up here by the Furies. You know, in Greek mythology, the Furies are called the chthonic gods. I am writing the word in the chat. You already must be knowing this word. Chthonic is a Greek word. It literally means the earth. So chthon means the earth. So chthonic means the underworld, subterranean. So in Greek mythology there are some subterranean gods or chthonic gods. The Furies are chthonic. Hecate is chthonic, and the gods who are generally found in hell, they are chthonic gods. So essentially the Furies, or Erineas, as also said in Greek, or Eumenides, these words all mean the Furies. Okay. So now I hope you understand why the Furies become important in this play. However, they are not agents of Nemesis here, but they essentially become important because A revolutionary hero or an anti-establishment hero must be punished by the forces of the establishment. And this also tunes well with the Greek pattern of the suffering of the hero at the end of the play. Therefore, Sartre manages to keep this Greek pattern, we may say, not exactly writing a Greek play though, by showing that the hero and the heroine, they suffer at the end of the play. So now at the beginning of Act 3, Orestes and Electra, they have taken shelter in the temple of Apollo. So the temple of Apollo is a sanctuary and nobody can be arrested from there or taken from there, and therefore the Furies, they cannot enter the temple. So Orestes and Electra are under the protection of Apollo. However, Apollo is a minor god compared to Zeus. He is not a minor god, but he is under Zeus. So Zeus at one point tells Orestes that Apollo cannot protect you. I will just have to lift a finger and he will obey me. And Orestes says that why don't you try it? You don't lift your finger, you lift your whole hand and see what happens. Now, why can Orestes say this? Because Orestes knows that he is free and that Zeus does not have any power over a person who knows that he or she is free. So, Zeus has no answer to that. Zeus is helpless. He can't do anything to Orestes because Orestes is a person who knows that he is free. However, Electra does not think that she is free. Electra turns out to be a believer in ideology at the end of the play. So he is afraid of Zeus, she is afraid of Zeus, she is afraid of religion, and she thinks that what Orestes is doing is blasphemy. So Electra happens to represent the conventional standpoint, and therefore she is much more vulnerable to the Furies, and the Furies even disturb her in her nightmare. Orestes is at no point afraid of the Furies, and we see that the Furies do not have any power over him until he decides to he decides to yield himself to the Furies. The question is why? He basically makes a self-sacrifice. He tells the people of Argos that, like the story of the person who played the flute and took all the rats away from the town, I will take all the Furies away with me in order to free you. So Orestes voluntarily yields to the Furies because he wants to take the Furies away from the town. So that is also concomitant of freedom. So if you are free, you are also responsible, or you must be responsible to free others, or to help free others. So you also must make a sacrifice. Therefore, freedom entails suffering, because a free person cannot but help others who remain enslaved. So Electra is having a nightmare and sighing in her sleep. No, no. So The way Sartre depicts the Furies, the first Fury says, I slept the night outstanding, stiff with rage, and my sleep was glorious with angry dreams. Ah, how lovely is the flower of anger, the red flower in my heart. Still sleeping, how white and soft they are. I will roll on their breasts and bellies like a torrent over stones, and I shall polish hour by hour their tender flesh, rub it, scour it, wear it to the bone. So the Furies are depicted as revengeful, eager to destroy, and dangerous. And Electra also believes in that. However, Orestes says that they are not harmful. And the Furies are extremely angry with him because he says this. Why does Orestes say this? Because they cannot harm one unless one believes in them. So the Furies cannot harm Orestes, but they threaten Electra because Electra believes in them. Electra believes that they are harmful. Electra believes that they can easily destroy her. You, Electra, are more beautiful than I, but you will see how my kisses age you. Within 6 months I will have you rattle like an old hag, but I stay young forever. So the Fury is angry with the fact that Electra is beautiful, but she is not. So she would destroy her beauty and make her look like an old hag. This lovely human carrion, what a tasty meal we have in store. As I gaze down at them and breathe their breath, I choke with rage. Nothing is sweeter, nothing, than to feel a dawn of hatred spreading like quick fire in one's veins. Teeth and talons ready for their task. Hatred is flooding through me, welling up in my breast like milk. Awake, sisters, awake, the day has come. So the Furies are depicted as full of hatred and anger. And it is this hatred and anger that we also see in the forces of establishment. So when the establishment, when the political powers that run the country punish some individual or group of individuals, it is usually ruthless, revengeful, full of hatred and anger. Okay, so that is why Sartre represents the Furies as full of hatred and anger, because they stand for the powers of the establishment. They stand for the powers of the state, for the powers of ideology. So these powers are so full of themselves, so arrogant, that they won't listen to any other point of view, and they would revengefully punish any individual or group of individuals that would try to resist such powers. So I do not have to explain this because we all know this from our everyday experience of politics. So the forces of establishment, they are against any person who does not believe in them, or who would assert his independence. Orestes is almost a child. I shall mother him, oh so tenderly, with my hatred. I shall take his pale head on my knees and stroke his hair. And then, when he least expects it, I shall dig these 2 fingers into his eyes. All laugh. So you see here a parody of motherhood. So taking the head tenderly on her knees, she would then destroy her. Okay, no problem, Dipanjana, give your attendance now. So, it is a parody of motherhood, nurturing. Motherhood is the most beautiful image of nurturing. Ideally, that should be the role of the state or the government, to nurture, to help flourish its citizens, its subjects. But as in the case of the Fury, the third Fury, the state or the government or the courts of institution, they often act against the subjects, against the citizens, rather than in favor of them. And they become agents of destruction rather than protection. And then there is a chorus of the Furies. Buzz, 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 we shall settle on your rotten hearts like flies on butter. Rotten hearts, juicy, luscious hearts. Like bees we will suck the pus and matter from your hearts, and will turn it into honey, rich green honey. What love could ravish us as hatred does. Buzz, 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 buzz. We shall be the staring eyes of the houses, the growls of the kennel mastiff bearing his fangs as you go by, a drone of wings pulsing in high air, and so on. So, we shall be the darkness, the clotted darkness of your souls, and so on. So, Sartre manages to introduce a chorus in the fashion of Greek plays, but this is a peculiar chorus where the Furies who are hungry for the blood of the protagonists, they gang up and they present themselves as the darkness of their souls. So, what is there in our souls? So let us believe that we have souls. And if we have souls, what is there in our souls? Of course, there are good things, there are beautiful things, but there are also there is also a lot of darkness, a lot of hatred, anger, jealousy. All these remain suppressed in our minds. So if we interpret for the moment soul in Freudian terms, then we suppose we are talking about the unconscious. And in everybody's unconscious, according to Freud, there are a lot of negative emotions which remain repressed. We repress them, we push them down to the unconscious, and we do not let them come up and take over us in our consciousness. So this is the darkness of our souls. Every human being has darkness in his or her souls. And this darkness takes shape of the Furies in this play. So are the Furies external agents? Apparently not. Neither the gods are. So in our mind, we take up different positions from time to time. So if we let our repressed negative emotions loose, then they are like the Furies. If we believe in ideology, then we erect a statue of Zeus, bloodthirsty god. So whether Zeus will be there to rule us, whether ideology would be there, whether religion would be there to control us, all this depends upon us. How we use our minds and how we use our intellect, that determines whether we will believe in these things or not. they are all constructs of the mind. So Sartre only personifies them or gives them voice, gives them shape, imaginary shapes in this play. But ultimately, existential philosophy is about man. It is about human existence. It does not believe in gods. It is atheistic in that respect. But it believes in man's potentiality. It believes in man's power to make a choice. Therefore, it believes that man can find his or her freedom if he or she wants it. Or, alternatively, man can remain imprisoned in ideology, in false belief, in religion, and so on. So existentialism is a modern philosophy. It does not believe in God, it does not believe in religion, but it believes in something. It believes in man's power to make a choice. So as I told you in the earlier class, I am reminding you once again that nihilism does not mean complete destruction of everything. Yes, first it destroys conventional philosophy, conventional belief. Nietzsche destroyed all earlier philosophy and theology and spoke in favor of an aesthetic route towards freedom, towards man's glorification of himself through art, through aesthetic perception. Sartre, on the other hand, believes in nihilism, destruction of all earlier philosophy and theology, but extends to man a route of salvation through politics or enlightened political determination. So man makes a choice, and by making the right choice, man can assert his freedom. So man has to understand how ideology falsely entraps him, and only then he can rid himself of ideology and assert his freedom. So Electra wakes up and Orestes also wakes up. And Electra says, "You, who are you?" "Ah, yes, Orestes, go away." "But what is wrong, Electra? You frightened me. I had a dream. I saw our mother lying on her back. Blood was pouring from her, gushing under the doors. A dream. Feel my hands. They are icy. No, don't touch me. Did she really bleed much?" So Electra is disturbed by the thought of the murder of Clytemnestra. And she begins to fear and also hate Orestes because Orestes committed the murder. And when she wants to know the details, then Orestes says, "Don't. That is, you need not know the details." Orestes committed the murder of Clytemnestra not from a personal point of view, not from a personal anguish, but because he believed that Clytemnestra should get her punishment for murdering Agamemnon. So somebody must do it. And whoever would do it would also be perennially blamed for this action. And therefore Orestes makes a self-sacrifice by committing this act and taking upon himself all the blame. And why does he commit this act? Because he wants to free the people of Argos from the evil rule of Clytemnestra and Aegisthus. So he has a political goal, at the same time also a philosophical goal, to provide people with freedom. So the destruction of a particular political force is not personal. And therefore Electra is wrong when she is trying to visualize the details of Clytemnestra murder. How much blood poured forth, how many stab wounds were made, and so on. So these details would only unnecessarily aggravate or increase her hate for Orestes. But Orestes did it for a public cause, and Electra does not see this distinction. Electra sees this act of murder from a personal point of view. So Orestes says, why, yes, I killed them. You too make me afraid. Yesterday you were so beautiful, and now you look as if some wild beast had clawed your face. No beast, your crime. It's tearing off my cheeks and eyelids. I feel as if my eyes and teeth were naked. So Electra thinks that Orestes' crime is responsible for her state. And when she speaks about the Furies, what are those creatures? Orestes says, take no notice of them. They can do you no harm. And the Furies are insulted, they feel insulted. No harm, let her dare to come among us and you will see if we can do no harm. Keep quiet, back to your kennel, beaches. The Furies growl. So, Orestes talks about the change in Electra. The girl, beautiful girl in white dress, who danced on the temple steps. Is it possible you were that girl? And Electra says, I have grown old in a single night. So the change that comes over Electra is a negative change. So earlier we saw that a change came over Orestes, but that was a positive change. Orestes stood in the full light of freedom and acted for a public cause. Whereas Electra became guilt-ridden. She thought that the murder of Clytemnestra and Aegisthus, that these murders were not proper. So what do we see here? We see that earlier Electra had a commitment for taking revenge of her father's death by murdering Aegisthus and Clytemnestra. Orestes did not have any such commitment. Later it becomes the opposite. Electra loses her commitment to the cause and becomes fearful of her personal consequence, which means that Electra turns blind to the public justification of the murder of Clytemnestra and Aegisthus. She loses sight of the public cause and looks at everything from a personal point of view, and therefore holds herself and Orestes personally responsible for that murder. So, through the opposed reactions of Electra and Orestes, Sartre wants to teach us the distinction between a private cause and a public cause. So, as I told you earlier also, that the revolutionary sometimes has to kill people, but he is not a murderer. A murderer or a hired assassin kills from a personal point of view, either for monetary gain or for some other personal grudge. Whereas a revolutionary kills, if he has to kill somebody, he kills because he wants to defeat the evil forces which are holding people in thrall, which are holding people enslaved. So he wants to defeat those forces and free the people. So he is not doing that for his personal gain, but for others, for the people. So there lies a big difference. So through the different reactions of Electra and Orestes, we are made to understand this distinction between a private cause and a public cause. So Electra gets disturbed by the presence of the Furies. She yet tries to know from the Furies how many times Orestes stabbed her. So he struck her several times, and the Furies of course want to create a wall between Electra and Orestes. They want Electra to hate Orestes, so they also perhaps exaggerate a little. So the first Fury says 10 times at least, and each time the sword squelched in the wound, she tried to shield her face and belly with her hands, and carved her hands to ribbons. Electra. So it was not a quick death. Did she suffer much? And Orestes does not want Electra to hear all these gory details, because that would unnecessarily increase her hate and anger against Orestes. So he says, put your fingers in your ears, do not look at them, and above all ask no questions. If you question them, you are lost. And the first Fury says, yes, she suffered horribly. Electra covering her face with her hands. Oh, Orestes, she wants to part us. She is building up a wall of solitude around you. But beware, once you are alone and helpless, they will fling themselves upon you. Electra, we planned this crime together, and we should bear its brunt together. So initially, Electra tries to deny that she had any role in the murder of Clytemnestra, but she later accepts it and says, wait, well, perhaps in a way, I do not know. I dreamt the crime, but you carried it out. You murdered your own mother. And then Orestes says, Electra, behind that door is the outside world, a world of dawn. Out there the sun is rising, lighting up the roads. Soon we shall leave this place. We shall walk those sunlit roads, and these hags of darkness will lose their power. The sunbeams will cut through them like swords. So this is his vision. And it would well have been possible for Orestes to walk freely in the sun once again. But he made a sacrifice for the people and for Electra. But for Electra, it is now impossible to assert this independence. She has already yielded so much to the Furies. She believed in the Furies so much. So, Furies means ideology. So, she cannot now break the spell of ideology anymore. And therefore, she will have to suffer the consequences of believing in false ideology. And what is the consequence? The consequence is that she feels herself guilty for the murder, and therefore she suffers from this guilt, pangs of conscience. So this suffering is only represented metaphorically by Sartre through the image of the Furies taking Electra away to hell. So hell is no other place. It is this, it is here only. It is nothing but a state of mind. So as we learn from Dr. Faustus, and a person who believes in hell and who believes in his or her sins, his or her crimes, that person always belongs to hell. So, in Milton, in Paradise Lost, Satan says that wherever I am, hell is there. Ubiquitous. So, hell is everywhere. Wherever I am present, that place is hell. Therefore, all these literary texts tell us that hell is not a place, it is a state of mind. Therefore, even though Sartre represents this action through the garb, in the garb of Greek mythology and the chthonic gods taking the hero and heroine to the underworld, we understand or we interpret it as only a metaphor. That is, you either suffer from your guilt or you believe that you have committed some crime and you suffer from pangs of conscience, or you think that whatever you have done from a good cause, for a public cause, and then you own the responsibility to your action. So Orestes tells Electra, and the anguish that consumes you, do you think it will ever cease ravaging my heart? But what matter? I am free. So why should the anguish of Electra ravage the heart of Orestes? Which means that Orestes does not think about only his personal happiness. So he suffers when he sees Electra suffer. So Orestes always thinks of the others, and that is what that is how a free man should behave. Because he is free does not mean that he forget the others, but it actually entails him with much more responsibility. That because he is free, therefore he should help others who are not free and who are suffering. I am free, but what matter? I am free, beyond anguish, beyond remorse, free, and at one with myself. No, you must not loathe yourself, Electra. Give me your hand, I shall never forsake you. But Electra hates him now. And she says, let go of my hand. Those hellhounds frighten me, but you frighten me more. So, why does Electra fear Orestes? Because Orestes has proved himself to be a man of determination and a man of action and a man who does not believe in ideology, a free man. And those who remain enslaved to ideology finds a free man dangerous. One is afraid of a free man. So it is much more comfortable for people to believe in things, You believe in God, you believe in religion, you pray to 1,000 gods every day. You feel yourselves in a comfortable cocoon as if you are protected by something. But the thing is that you are not protected by anything apart from your false belief. People would rather believe in false things than believe that there is nothing protecting them. So it is much more difficult to accept that everybody must look out for himself or herself independently, that there is no guardian angel, no God protecting people. It is a much more difficult proposition. So most people tend to believe in religion, God, orthodoxy, tradition, and ideology. So the Furies are very happy that Orestes, that Electra does not accept Orestes' help, that they have succeeded in building a wall between them. You see, that is quite true. Yeah, Mohin, you lost your connection. Okay, no problem. Thank you. That is quite true. Little doll, you are less afraid of us than of that man, because you need us, Electra. You are our child, our little girl. You need our nails to score your skin, our teeth to bite your breast, and all our savage love to save you from your hatred of yourself. Only the suffering of your body can take your mind off your suffering soul. So come and let us part you. You have only those 2 steps to come down, and we will take you in our arms. And when our kisses sear your tender flesh, you will forget all in the cleansing fires of pain. So, you see that pain is depicted here as an inevitable consequence of being born as human. So whether you are one who surrenders to ideology, or whether you are one who acts against ideology, in any case you are going to suffer from pain. You are going to experience pain and anguish. Then Zeus comes and intervenes, and momentarily, as the Furies try to take Electra away, he momentarily stops them, but he is more diplomatic. He intervened with a hidden agenda. So he wants Electra to, he tells Electra that I can relieve you from this suffering. The Furies won't hurt you if you just accept that you were wrong in acting against the state and the gods, that you are penitent. So this also reminds us, this ploy reminds us of the action sometimes of state agents who arrest revolutionaries and then torture them and grill them, interrogate them, and tell them that if you ask for forgiveness, if you say that, if you admit that what you did was wrong, then we will let you go. So this actually is much more harmful, because you are not only breaking a man physically, but you are breaking him intellectually. You are forcing him to abandon his belief, to abandon what he believed in. And that would create a permanent wound in one's conscience. People who could not pursue a particular belief, a particular thought, because of weak determination and surrender to the opposite forces, would always suffer from anguish and pangs of conscience. So those who betray the cause, say it is the cause of the revolution, so those who betray the cause and those who turn against the cause by joining forces with the government or the establishment. They would always find themselves in a precarious situation that they are hated by everybody. So they are hated by their earlier comrades, and they are also secretly hated by the government or the institution because they are turncoats or they abandon their belief. So nobody trusts in these people anymore. Orestes tries to oppose Zeus's intervention. Orestes says, "Torture me to your heart's content, I regret nothing." Earlier he says, "I am no criminal and you have no power to make me atone for an act I don't regard as a crime." So you see here through Orestes, Sartre presents this distinction between a revolutionary and a criminal. And Orestes says that I do not consider what I did was a crime, therefore there is no question of atonement. And he is ready to accept torture if Zeus wants to torture him, but he won't admit that he committed a mistake or a crime. "Torture me to your heart's content, I regret nothing. Not even the doom you have brought upon your sister, not even that." So this is a clever and diplomatic ploy by Zeus, because if Orestes denies this, then his sister would think that he doesn't love her. And Orestes must deny it, because Orestes' actions are not dictated by any personal cause. So when he denies it, Zeus says, "Do you hear, Electra? And this man professed to love you." Orestes, "She is dearer to me than life, but her suffering comes from within, and only she can rid herself of it, for she is free." So Orestes wants Electra to assert her freedom, but Electra cannot do it. Orestes fully believes that if Electra could stop believing in Zeus and believing in the forces, then the forces that control them, then she would be able to assert her freedom. But she is too timid to assert her freedom. Here Electra actually stands for the majority of people. The majority of people are not revolutionaries. The majority of people are too timid to assert their freedom, and therefore they accept ideology. They do not try to rid themselves of ideology. And Zeus says, "And you too are free, no doubt." Orestes, "Yes, and well you know it. A pity you can't see yourself as you are now, you fool, for all your boasting." Zeus pretends to trying to save them. He says, "Haven't I told you that I take no pleasure in punishment? I have come to save you both." Electra, "To save us? No, it is too cruel to make sport of us. You are the lord of vengeance and of death, but God though you are, you have no right to delude your victims with false hopes." So for once Electra can speak against Zeus. And then Zeus says that I can take you outside and you will be safe and sound. Within a quarter of an hour you can be outside that door. Safe and sound? You have my word for it. And what do you want from me in return? Nothing, my child, nothing. Nothing? Did I hear right? Then you are a kind God, a lovable God. Zeus, or next to nothing. A mere trifle. What you can give most easily, a little penitence. And this is a trick. And Orestes therefore warns Electra. Take care, Electra, that trifle will weigh like a millstone on your soul. So penitence, that is repentance for one's actions, means surrendering to gods. Gods here stand for the forces that control us, or that are too powerful over us. So Orestes says, Electra, are you going to go back on 15 years of hope and hatred? What has she to go back on? Never did she really wish that empire's deed to be accomplished, Zeus says. But that is not true. For 15 years, Electra wanted Aegisthus and Clytemnestra to be murdered. So Electra says, if only that were true. So Electra also knows that what Zeus is saying is false, and that she is going back on her words. Electra incredulously. And you read in mine that I never really desired that crime, though for 15 years I dreamt of murder and revenge. Zeus, bah, I know you nursed bloodthirsty dreams, but there was a sort of innocence about them. They made you forget your servitude, they healed your wounded pride, but you never really thought of making them come true. So Zeus cleverly says that yes, you nurtured that dream of revenge, but that was only a kind of consolation to provide you comfort when you were in servitude and you suffered from the hands of your mother and Aegisthus. So that was a kind of that was your way of coping with that suffering, but it was all mental. You never really actually wanted the crime to be committed. And now that is a clever trick, because Electra never actually thought of the murders, how they would be committed. So she had only dreamed something vaguely, but did not plan its execution. Or we may say that she did not have the courage to plan its execution. So without Orestes executing it, her dream would have remained a dream. And therefore Electra knows that now Zeus is telling the truth, because she never planned the execution. And she says, Zeus, dear Zeus, how I long to think you are not mistaken. So there is a kind of contradiction in Electra here. So she is not completely sure that she never planned any execution of the crime. And therefore she thinks that Zeus may be partly mistaken, but we have no way to verify whether Electra actually thought of the execution or not, because it is never mentioned in the play. It all lies hidden in Electra's mind. And Zeus only tricks her by asserting that she never planned it. But Electra is not so sure. Which means that Electra also in a way realizes that she was as much to blame for the murder of Clytemnestra, if it is a blame, it is a question of blame. Because thinking or planning all that which Electra did in her mind, there remains no witness to that. So nobody knows how far Electra actually planned it. And therefore to assert anything here would be in the blind. And Zeus asserts that Electra did not plan it because he wants to give her false hope. Being a god, Zeus must be knowing that Electra also thought about it in her mind quite carefully. but he wants to build a wall of separation between Electra and Orestes and give Electra a false hope that she might be saved. So Orestes tells Electra, listen Electra, it is now you are bringing guilt upon you. For who except yourself can know what you really wanted? So Orestes says that there is no need for you to think that you also planned the execution. Because since nobody else knows apart from you, so if you keep silent, if you do not admit, then there is no way of verifying whether you really planned it or not. And therefore you should not hold yourself responsible for this crime. Will you let another decide that for you? Why distort a past that can no longer stand up for itself? And why disown the firebrand that you wear, that glorious young goddess vivid with hatred that I loved so much? Can't you see this cruel god is fooling you? So here Orestes describes Electra as the glorious young goddess, vivid with hatred. The word Electra in Greek means the goddess of storm. So Electra should behave like that glorious goddess of storm, and she should not yield to the false suggestions of this Zeus. Zeus then tempts Electra in another way. He says that I am not fooling you, and now hear what I offer. If you repudiate your crime, I will see that you too occupy the throne of Argos. So, if you repudiate your crime, that is, if you deny that you committed any crime, that if you say that you did not plan the execution of this murder, then I will ensure that the two of you rule over Argos. So in that case, Orestes would be the king, and Electra would take the place of Clytemnestra. So Orestes understands Zeus's trick. Zeus wants to carry on the status quo. So just like Eurystheus and Clytemnestra ruled over the people by making them believe in false ideology or religion, similarly, Orestes and Electra now will rule over the people, making them believe in this false ideology. So nothing will change, and Orestes' brave action of killing of Eurystheus and Clytemnestra will go in vain if they accept this offer of Zeus. The status quo will be maintained, and Zeus will continue to rule people through Orestes and Electra, who would then act as his agents. So you see, this is how there are always temptations offered to the revolutionaries. That is, one who is a revolutionary today, tomorrow he might be the ruler. But a revolutionary may be made to enter into a secret pact with part of the, ruling section, part of the people who earlier ruled. The revolutionary might enter into a secret pact with them, so that the earlier classes which ruled directly, they continue now to rule indirectly through the new rulers, the revolutionary turned rulers. So that is a temptation, which means that the vested interests, they cannot be thrown out, because they are always eager to enter into secret agreements with whoever comes up as powerful to fight against them. So, obviously Orestes sees through Zeus's plan, but Electra cannot. In this dialogue we see how Zeus tells them that they will be mourning for the death of Clytemnestra, they will wear black dresses. So just the rituals which were carried out after the murder of Agamemnon, the same rituals will be carried on by Orestes and Electra. So only the people would change, but the status quo of the city will remain the same. There will be the same kind of mourning ritual, the same hold of religion over people, and nobody will be free, and Zeus would continue to rule. So Orestes tells Electra that if you accept this, then you will play the role of Clytemnestra. Everyone will take you for your mother, but I fear I am more squeamish. I refuse to wear the breeches of the clown I killed. That is, I will not step into the shoes of Eurystheus. So you may be ready to play the role of Clytemnestra, but I will not become the king of Argos, and like Eurystheus, I will not be in a secret agreement with Zeus. You talk big, my boy. You butchered a defenseless man and an old woman who begged for mercy. But to hear you speak, one would think you had bravely fought, won against a crowd, and were the savior of your city. Orestes says, perhaps I was. So he asserts that yes, perhaps in a way I saved my city. And then Zeus has another, card up his sleeve, and that is by telling Orestes that the people that you thought that you saved, the people of the city of Argos, they have turned against you. They are out there ready to kill you. So you should not make any boast of this. You a savior, do you know what is afoot behind that door? All the good folk of Argos are waiting there, waiting to greet you with stones and pikes and pitchforks. Oh, they are very grateful to their savior, who are lonely as a leper. Yes. So Orestes also knows that ultimately he will be lonely, he will be alone, and he doesn't care for it. Because he has taken a determined resolution, so he would own up all the consequences of his action. So you take pride in being an outcast, do you? But the solitude you are doomed to, most cowardly of murderers, is the solitude of scorn and loathing. The most cowardly of murderers is he who feels remorse. So Orestes says that one is a coward if one denies the responsibility of his action and some action which he earlier thought right, later he repents for it and feels regret and remorse. So I am not going to regret my action because it was for a public cause, and I am not going to feel remorse, therefore I am not a coward. I am brave enough to accept all the consequences of my action. Then Zeus offers a metaphysical, interpretation of good and evil. So that is another clever trick. And Sartre exposes how metaphysics, religion, ethics, they all create a veil and hide the true purpose of ideology. So Zeus speaks of good and evil and pretends himself to represent good, and therefore presents Orestes' action as evil. Now, Orestes will throw out this entire metaphysics of good and evil. So as Nietzsche interpreted through his philosophy the idea that one must go beyond good and evil if one wants to build a new world or a new interpretation of the world, because the explanation or the interpretation of good is tied to a theology which believes in God. So unless you murder God, unless you throw out that entire theology and that structure of good and evil, conventional good and evil, you cannot build a new world, a world where there is no role of metaphysics or false belief, and you cannot make people free. So Zeus says, "You are a foreign body in the world, like a splinter in flesh, or a poacher in his lordship's forest. For the world is good. I made it according to my will, and I am goodness. But you, Orestes, you have done evil. The very rocks and stones cry out against you. The good is everywhere. It is the coolness of the wellspring, the pith of the reed, the grain of flint, the weight of stone. Yes, you will find it even in the heart of fire and light. Even your own body plays you false, for it abides forced by my law." So, Zeus here is equating good with nature and says that since as a god I created nature and what I created is good, so everything is good in my creation as far as everything is natural, and you are evil because you try to upset this whole doctrine of good and evil. Good is everywhere, in you and about you, sweeping through you like a sky, crushing you like a mountain. Like an ocean, it bows you up and rocks you to and fro, and it enabled the success of your evil plan. For it was in the brightness of the torches, the temper of your blade, the strength of your right arm. That is, all the natural things, according to Zeus, they are good. And because they are good, that is why even Orestes' revolution could be successful. He could kill Aegisthus because his sword had a good temper, because his arm had good strength, and the torch provided good light, and so on and so forth. And that of which you are so vain, the evil that you think is your creation, what is it but a reflection in a mocking mirror, a phantom thing that would have no being but for goodness? So evil is defined in ethics as the deprivation of good in theology. So evil, or evil is not something that has status, that has an existence apart from good. So we identify what is evil only by looking at good. So if Orestes tries to boast or claim that he has created evil, then there also he is wrong, because according to Zeus, evil is nothing but the mocking mirror of good, or the deprivation of good. No, Orestes, return to your saner self. The universe refutes you. You are a mite in the scheme of things. Return to nature, nature's thankless son. Know your sin, abhor it, and tear it from you as one tears out a rotten, noisome tooth. Or else beware lest the very seas shrink back at your approach, springs dry up when you pass by, stones and rocks roll from your path, and the earth crumbles under your feet. So Zeus threatens Orestes by saying that the whole nature will rebel against you because you are behaving unnaturally by not accepting that whatever is there is good. And Orestes' reply, let it crumble, let the rocks revile me and flowers wilt at my coming. Your whole universe is not enough to prove me wrong. You are the king of gods, king of stones and stars, kings of the waves of the sea, but you are not the king of man. The walls draw together, Zeus comes into view tired and dejected, and he now speaks in his normal voice. So, Orestes, by defying the gods, he asserts man's freedom. So Orestes says that the gods may have created the whole world, and the whole world may be thankful to God for their creation. So God is God of everything, of all nature, of stones and flowers and stars and oceans, but God is not God of man. Gods cannot rule man. And there Orestes asserts his freedom, or the freedom of man, against theology. Now, as opposed to the thousands of years of belief in God, the very strong belief in God that we saw in since the 16th century, of course since much earlier time, but I mean, if we look at literature and culture from the 16th century onwards up to the modern times, that is from early modern to modern times, we see that the great force of belief in theology, belief in God, was contended philosophically, was debated philosophically in the 17th century, and this debate can be seen particularly in the views of Descartes. And then after the end of the 17th century, gradually there rises Enlightenment philosophy, and skepticism becomes stronger and stronger. And finally with Nietzsche, we may say that philosophy ultimately rejects the doctrine of God as any kind of truth. And so we see here Sartre's philosophy, existentialism, stands upon the fundamental basis of nihilism. And as nihilism is atheistical, it does not believe in God. So existentialism represents man as being in a universe without God. And in that universe, man contends with many false beliefs, religion, propaganda, ideology, and against all these different false beliefs, political, theological, religious, and so on, man asserts his freedom by making a particular choice. So here Zeus appears tired and dejected because Orestes resolutely presents the modern nihilist and existentialist point of view that God is dead and that all ideology is created by man and that they are false belief, and man therefore can at any point assert his freedom by rejecting all this false ideology. And when man takes such a standpoint, then God has to retrace his steps. God has to go back, because if man stops believing in God, then gods are helpless. Next page, Orestes describes how he felt freedom and how the illusions left him, and for the last time That was the last time, the last I saw my youth. Suddenly, out of the blue, freedom crashed down on me and swept me off my feet. Nature sprang back, my youth went with the wind, and I knew myself alone, utterly alone in the midst of this well-meaning little universe of yours. I was like a man who has lost his shadow, and there was nothing left in heaven, no right or wrong, nor anyone to give me orders. So this is an expression of nihilist philosophy, and also which is the basis of existential philosophy, that when this illusion goes away, then man finds himself alone in this world without a creator or without a god or gods. So one consequence of nihilism is that man must find himself absolutely alone. So this sense of alienation from the universe, because all other things in the universe, since they do not have this consciousness of man, therefore they are also unable to think of themselves as being alone in the world. They are also unable to build a theology and believe in God. Man is capable both of creating a theology, of making a false belief in God, and also of destroying this theology, and therefore stop believing in God or any false creation or any idea of a creator creating this world. And that leaves man entirely alone on this scene, in this small little universe, meaningful, well-meaning universe, as Orestes says. So this phrase, well-meaning, is full of irony, because from an existential point of view, this universe has no meaning. So man finds himself alone, without any meaning, without any ulterior purpose in this universe. So if he has to find any purpose or meaning, he can do that only by siding with a particular political side, making a choice. So Zeus says that, so you now become absolutely alone. Remember, Orestes, you once were of my flock, you fed in my pastures among my sheep. Your wanted freedom isolates you from the fold. It means exile. So the revolutionary is an exile. He does not belong to the fold anymore. He is alone. So the image of the sheep who always remain in a group and who always follow one another, that stands here for ordinary people who find comfort in a group or who always accept all false belief and find consolation that others also believe in those. Opposed to them, the revolutionary has lost this illusion, and therefore he finds himself alienated and in the position of an exile. So this sense of alienation is philosophical alienation, which we find in existential philosophy, which Sartre and Camus both expressed in their literature, in their writings. So Orestes contends with Zeus, debates with him, and says, "For I, Zeus, am a man, and every man must find out his own way. Nature abhors man, and you too, God of gods, abhor mankind." So Orestes asserts that man in a way goes against nature, or nature abhors man, because man does something which nature cannot, that is, he stops believing in false belief, uh, and he finds his own way. Orestes says that, I do not hate you. What have I to do with you, or you with me? We shall glide past each other like ships in a river without touching. You are God, and I am free. Each of us is alone, and our anguish is akin. How can you know I did not try to feel remorse in the long night that has gone by, and to sleep? But no longer can I feel remorse, and I can sleep no more. So here we have this metaphor of sleeping and awakening. So the free man is like an enlightened man, a man who has awakened from sleep. So Orestes says that I cannot sleep anymore. Now that I am awakened to this truth, that ideology is false, that I am alone, that I am not followed by others, and others all believe in false ideology. So I can neither feel remorse for my action, nor I can sleep. So I am awake with this sense of exile, this sense of loneliness. So vis-a-vis the people, Zeus says that what will the people make of you or your gift? What will they make of it? Orestes, what they choose. They are free, and human life begins on the far side of despair. Very poetic expression. Far side of despair. Far side of despair. So Orestes is in a position where he does not despair. So life, true human life begins when one asserts one's freedom, and then one does not despair anymore, because one is free to make of the universe, of the world, what one chooses. So Zeus's question, what will the people do with the gift of freedom? To that, Orestes' answer is that their lives will truly begin when they do not despair anymore. Because once they feel themselves to be free, then they can take their own decisions. What to do with this world? What to do with this life?